Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Tony, are you there?
I am here, sir. How are you this evening?
I am fine. I hurt my back when I fell off my bicycle, but other than that, I'm perfect.
Well, it's like riding a bicycle. You never forget. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah, I think I forgot.
Yeah, scratch that. We'll work on that. Well,
hey,
you survived it, though, and as Shane the Young Gun says to me, you're still above the grass.
Yeah,
exactly. That's true.
Yeah, is he saying that to you already? You're only 52.
Yeah, I will get that. Everyone goes, well, you're still above the grass. It's like, listen, young man.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Does he know does he know you're his boss now?
I think maybe, I don't know. I figure he's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now this is probably January or February of 2019. So how did your Christmas go?
Oh, it was splendid. How was yours?
Oh, it's great. I got everything I wanted and then some.
Oh, very good.
And then we had a blinding snowstorm, and we were buried. We were actually cut off from civilization for 2.5 weeks.
Well, we were warned of this. I've had people say to me before it was George Gobel's warning.
Yes.
And, whenever George Gobel would be on the Tonight Show, I'd change a channel. So I never heard George Gobel's warning.
I can't
or
say.
Whatever they're saying that. Maybe it's global. I don't know.
Yeah. Global.
But bump.
That's a nice one. I like that. Tonight we're going to talk. One other thing I wanted to ask you. I know this is kind of dated, and we probably talked about it earlier than this, but you went to see Smokey and the Bandit on the big screen again. Yes,
I did, and I'm happy to say the last 2 times I got to see the movie were both, I guess, what was it? Last year was 2017 was the 40th anniversary, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I saw it then, and then because of the sad passing of legend Burt Reynolds, it was back out again. So I was able to go see it again, and it's one that I've never passed the opportunity up. So it was excellent. I wish you could have been there with me. We'd have had a blast.
I was watching it on. I won the special edition DVD at the AML picnic.
That had to be, I think many were jealous of the fact that you did get. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was. There was a lot of talk about it, insider.
Oh yeah, you always hear that kind of stuff. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. That's a movie you can watch. I keep thinking to myself I should be tired of watching this movie, but I never get tired of watching this movie.
No.
I don't know.
I mean, it's funny. I saw it so many times. This would have been like 1980 when I first got it on Laserdisc. So like seeing there in the theater, I know where the disc side flips were. Like, okay, that's a flip from side 1 to side 2. There's side 3 to side 4. I mean, from seeing it that many times, that still is in my head of, this scene is where you had to flip the disc over.
It's like Blazing Saddles. There's a few scenes in there, or a few comments in there where you're going, you kind of cringe and go, yeah, I don't think that would fly today.
I don't think you'd get a PG today. I would assume the excessive language would.
Yeah.
It's one of those, I can't imagine that being a PG rated film, but it was.
Okay. All right. Now tonight we're going to talk to, do you have any fire safety issues?
Not that I'm aware of, but are we talking to someone that was what they did for?
Yeah, Tom. We're talking to a young fella named Thomas Klimoski, and he was a firefighter in Miami, South Florida.
I think I've heard of him. I've seen him in, I believe, Model Railroader. That some of his layout work. Is he the Georgia Northeastern?
He is. That's it. The road.
That is a slick looking layout. His lumberyard facility was one that caught my eye when I first saw that and said, "Oh, that's well done."
The roads are so hot in South Florida. You have to be a fire. They need firemen just to keep the roads from catching on. It's beautiful layout. All right, Thomas, can you hear us in the green room?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, put down the shrimp and come on in, buddy.
All right.
Oh boy, I hope he hasn't eaten very many of those shrimp.
Yeah, and be careful where you sit on the couch. There's one in there. It's that green bubble. Well, you're a firefighter. Maybe you know what that substance is because It's been getting nastier and nastier. It's some sort of hazmat thing.
It's kind of eating into the cushion, too.
Yeah.
We're not sure.
It's kind of eating into the floor now.
Oh, well. But yes, make yourself comfortable.
At the spacious AML studios in Busted Knuckle, Kentucky.
That sounds good. Yeah, this is very comfortable here.
Yes, it is, isn't it? We had it. We had it redecorated in Pullman Green, weathered Pullman Green. So, Tom, we first met. Tony, you and I have actually already met Mr. Klimoski when we did the show with our buddy Scott Thornton about Proto Throttle.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, he was on that show, yeah.
And he was one of the beta testers of the Proto Throttle.
That's correct.
Yeah. And that's the show I was giving Scott. Well, I continually give Scott Thornton a hard time about. He was convinced they weren't going to sell but 3 of them. They're probably closing in on 300 by now.
Probably so.
It gets so much attention at the last fall, or actually late last summer at the Wyoming RPM meet. Dave Zucker from Spring Creek Trains in Nebraska was there and had that little setup with the track. And I don't know how many guys went over, oh, is that one of those? Oh, let me try that. Is that a Proto Throttle? And I was sitting there talking to Dave just about train stuff. And somebody finally said, oh, here, were you waiting? Did you? I said, oh, no. Yeah, I play, please. Yeah. Let the next guy in line. No, I know what it is. Yeah, it's very cool.
So, Thomas, where exactly do we call you Thomas or Tom or Sir?
Either one is fine. Either one is fine. I go by both.
Okay. All right, both. That one never gets old. I'll start with Tom. So, whereabouts exactly are you located in the lower 48?
I'm in the beautiful northeast Georgia mountains, right on the border of North Carolina. In Georgia and Tennessee, we're very close. All those states are within 30 minutes drive.
Oh, okay. And is that where but you were a firefighter in Miami, you said?
That's correct. I was actually born and raised in Miami, a true Miamian, actually born in Miami.
Really?
And spent my whole life there and became a Miami firefighter and worked for the fire department for over 28 years and then retired and moved up here to the Georgia mountains where it's nice and quiet and peaceful.
So what's
all the things that Miami isn't?
Yeah, that's for sure. Traffic down there drives you nuts.
Absolutely.
I have a house in about 25 miles west of Daytona Beach, and it's a quiet area off I-4, and even there the traffic is like, you get over, even there it's bad, but it's not nothing. Are you like near Johnson City and that kind of stuff?
That's a little ways away, but yeah, I'm actually up in the Georgia mountains, pretty much a 2-hour drive from Asheville, Chattanooga, or Atlanta. So if you go in any of those directions, you can get to a big city, but it's about a 2-hour drive.
Okay, and so what's the nearest town of any substance near you?
Blairsville, which is a big metropolis of probably a couple thousand people.
All right, so I see Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the map here. I wanna figure out where you are. This is important so that when we come uninvited.
Oh, okay.
I see Atlanta. I see Chattanooga. I see Asheville.
Yeah.
So you're in the how do you say that, National Forest?
Nantahala
National Forest.
That's correct. Most people know where Helen is. That's Helen, Georgia, which is an alpine village, and they have a great Oktoberfest. It's a little German town. They've got lots of beverages during the October season.
Yes, I know. I know of and have been through Helen. Yes, it's a beautiful.
Okay. Well, then you were not that far away from me. That's about 30 minutes south of where I live.
Oh, okay. That's cool. And so you're right up there near Hiawassee.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said, isn't it? Are you on the lake there?
No, not on the lake, but off in the little valley area. We don't have lake money. We've got obstructed view money. How's that?
Obstructed view money.
You pay extra for those kind of tickets when you buy them at a concert. The obstructed view. That's what I've got.
Okay. And so you're like Macedonia or Hiawassee. Boy, you're right
That's
there.
it. That's it.
And how did you end up there?
Well, when my wife and I got married, we came up for our honeymoon many years ago and stayed in an area over in Blairsville, and just fell in love with the area and kept coming back year after year. And some friends of ours bought a house in Hiawassee, and we'd come up and stay in their place and just love the area. And again, it's a beautiful part of the country. You get all the seasons, but you don't have to deal with a whole lot of snow.
Yeah.
And it's pleasant during the summers and not extremely cold in the winter, so it's not too bad.
I know. I've been going to Florida for years, and through Statesville and all through that down 77, north of Charlotte. It's beautiful in there. It's beautiful, temperate climate through there.
Yes.
Like you say, you get all the seasons, but you can. I'm a Harley riding guy, and I got friends that ride all year round.
Yeah, a lot of people come up to this area to ride their bikes. Some beautiful, nice, relaxing roads, and you get out there as the leaves are changing and stuff, and it's very, very nice. So we've got a lot of people that come up to this area just for that.
And how long have you been there?
Almost 7 years.
And I'm assuming there's a huge model railroad population up there.
No. But that was part of my plans when I decided to build my layout. I was like, if you build it, they will come, but not to where I live. So I didn't want to build a huge layout that required lots and lots of operators if I wasn't going to be able to get the lots and lots of operators.
Right.
So I kept it pretty small compared to most people. It's basically about the size of a bedroom, but I've got plenty of operations and more than enough to keep me busy.
Well, and I think that's important. Like, that'll be a good subject to talk about because, so many people think they've got to build the gigantic layout to have the enjoyment of it, and you haven't done that at all. So if somebody goes to your ThomasKlimoski.com layout, Thomas or website, Thomas is Thomas, and Klimoski is KLIMOSKI.com.
That's correct. And they can see the track plan, and I got operations. I talk about the operations, have some switch lists there. If you want to download those, you can download those as a PDF or a Excel spreadsheet and modify them to fit your own layout, and you can kind of see what I've done. And I've also got videos there where you can watch and see how each of the locals operate. And basically, I can run three separate trains, three different jobs. And actually, two of them can be run at the same time if I get 4 operators here. But normally it's a couple of operators. I usually work with a conductor and an engineer working the train. And if they do all 3 switch jobs, that can take about 3 hours. And considering it's in a 9'2" by 10'6" room, that's a pretty good operating session for a small layout.
Yeah, and that is impressive. That I noticed your CSX layout shows that it's basically like in a garage, it's a good size thing. But the Georgia Northeastern, if you've seen pictures of it in magazines, it's almost surprising to see that drawing that it's in a 9 by 10 room. It's like, well, that's not much more than a bedroom, and he's got all that in there.
Yeah,
it is a really neat layout.
And go ahead.
I took a bunch of time designing it and trying to come up with a realistic track plan that had a lot of operation but didn't look crowded, and left myself enough aisle space so that again the room didn't seem crowded, and it seems to have worked out. I've had lots of people over to operate, and it's been great.
And at that size of room, it's surprising to your, what is it on the Georgia Northeastern, your 24 minimum radius. And is the main line really 36? You're able to turn that wide?
Well, the radius is 24 on the curves, and then I've got where it comes back up the peninsula. It's pretty much a continuous. It's got a slight easement into it, but it comes back out the peninsula off of a turnout, so it turns back. And they're 24-inch radius curves. Pretty much that's the minimum. I may ease them out a little bit, but I'm running, 4-axle locomotives. I don't run anything bigger than that, which works out exactly as the Georgia Northeastern does. They do not allow any locomotives larger than a 4-axle, say like a GP38, GP9. I mean, I've pretty much followed their prototype, and maximum track speed on the Georgia Northeastern prototype is 15 miles an hour.
Yeah.
In most places, it's 10.
So the Georgia Northeastern, what is that exactly?
It's a real railroad line.
It's a short line.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I thought, well, this looks like a great home road. He's got a really good paint scheme. And then later it's like, hey, wait a minute. There's a picture of a real one. I thought it was a home road.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a short line that was spun off from CSX, and it runs from Marietta. Basically, it ties into CSX in Elizabeth Yard, which is Marietta, and then goes north from Marietta up through several little towns, through heading towards the Tennessee border, and it goes all the way up through Blue Ridge, and then Blue Ridge they've got a passenger scenic train that runs from Blue Ridge up to McKaysville, Georgia, Copper Hill, Tennessee, which is right on the state line. The state line runs right through the middle of town. The engine and the first 3 cars make it into Tennessee. The 4th car stays in Georgia. So it's really interesting. They got the state line painted right on the sidewalk there as you get off the cars. And I worked on that line for a little over 5 years as a trainman, so I got a lot of prototype experience. Got to ride in the cab of a couple of EMD units, and got to know the engineers really well, and did the brake checks and did all the other things that a trainman did. Had all the fun, but none of the responsibility of the engineer.
And how did you end up doing that?
Started off as a volunteer. They were looking for volunteers, and started off as a car host, and then worked my way up to trainman, and then they had also the position of conductor. But I was having too much fun as a trainman. I didn't want the conductor job, so the trainman got to ride in the cab of the locomotive. The conductor got to punch the tickets. So I said, no, I think I'll stay as a trainman.
Okay.
Because I enjoyed that work.
In conductor, you mean as like in passenger conductor?
Correct, as in a passenger conductor. Yeah, the conductor was in charge of the train and gave the orders to the engineer and the rest of the crew, but he also went around and punched tickets. The trainman was working directly with the engineer and doing the brake checks and anything else that needed to be done on the train. And the most fun job was what we called the political run, which is where you had to go dump the holding tanks from the bathrooms on the passenger cars. So we had to do it similar. If you've had an RV experience, you kind of know what the procedure is. You have to line up the discharge to a certain spot where we used to dump them into a sewer system, and we'd have to call for the train to move forward, and we'd hook up the hose and open up the lever and dump the toilet and do the next one and run through the train that way. And that was part of the job of the trainman. Probably not the most pleasant smelling job, but it was still fun.
Okay. And I see. Okay, there's a small picture of you on your how-to or about me pages. Where is that?
That's correct. That's at the bottom of the homepage.
Okay, yeah. So you need a bigger picture of yourself so people can.
No, I don't. If you watch any of my videos, you will never see my face on the videos.
Okay. Are you ugly?
Because I have a face for radio. How's that?
All right. Okay. Well, so do I, but that doesn't stop me from taking my picture. Actually, a lot of people tell me I'm a strikingly handsome man for my age.
That may be true.
That slowed him down, didn't it? That slowed him down for the.
I was trying to think. Well, no, I didn't hear it then. Nope, I don't remember anybody saying it that day. Yeah. I was trying to think of some, supporting evidence for you, and I couldn't come up with any.
So, are you like okay? So it says here on your website that your first Lionel train set, your current layout. So are you like everybody else? You started with the trains around the Christmas tree, or?
Pretty much. My father worked in an auto parts store, and one of their promotions was if you sell so many widgets, you get a Lionel train set. And he did a great job, and he sold a lot of widgets, and I got 2 train sets.
Wow.
So as a young man at about 5 years old or so, I got a couple of Lionel trains and got to have all kinds of fun with those. And then That from the floor, it went on to a ping pong table that I set up in my bedroom, and I actually ended up sleeping underneath the layout because the layout took up almost all the room. If you can imagine a ping pong table being set up in a standard sized bedroom,
Right.
and then I branched out from there. This is again all in Florida, so we had no basements, so we had a back porch which was screened in, which is not the best place to have a model train set, but that's where I set up a two 4x8 sheets of plywood bolted together into an L shape and set up a Lionel train and had all kinds of fun with it and used all my paper route money to buy rolling stock and locomotives and all that other stuff. And then, like most people, other things came into my life and the trains went away. And then once we got married and had kids, started looking at, well, maybe, something I could do with my firstborn son.
Right.
And we started a little train set on a 4x8 sheet, and went to HO scale because I didn't have much room in the house. And then from there, that layout grew into the one that you see, the CSX Hawks Ridge, which was set up in my garage in my house in Miami, which again is not the ideal location for a layout. And the other part of that was that it still had to accommodate my wife's car. We wanted to be able to park it inside. So I had lots of sections that were removable that went across where the garage door was. So I would take those down, store them, and then we'd pull the car out, set up the layout, and again had between 6 to 10 operators come over, and we'd run trains and do switching and have all kinds of fun. And I would do them in the evening during the winter time in Florida because summertime was just way too hot. And heat and humidity in Miami come together, and it's just not very comfortable. So, but wintertime wasn't too bad, and do it in the evenings. It was good. We had some great operating sessions and learned a lot from that layout, and applied some of that stuff to my current layout.
Huh. And so, are there basements where you are?
Yes, absolutely. We have what we would call a daylight basement or a walkout basement. So we're into the side of a mountain. So the main floor is above me, and then we have the basement. But I have sliding glass doors where I can go outside.
Sure.
But my train room has no windows. It would be basically, it's a glorified closet. How's that?
Okay. And so you decided you had some experience. You knew you were going to be away from the main part of population, so you went with a smaller. And there must be, because this is something we would want to pass over. But I mean, there must be some satisfaction in a layout like this, for argument's sake, 10 by 10 layout, and you got it completed basically, and probably in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, I've been working on the layout about 5 years. We moved into the house about 7 years ago, but the basement was not finished. So we lived in the house for about a year and then finished the basement. And then once the basement was done, then I started my train layout. So that year of time gave me time to think and plan and get a good idea of what I wanted. So there wouldn't be that many surprises. And I'm very much into detailing, so a small layout works out for me. I mean, I've got friends that have basement-size empires, and I don't know that they'll ever, get them finished or detailed to the level that I like.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about a smaller layout, and they can be just as satisfied. It's important that people, I think, as the hobby grows and expands, because I'm convinced it's going to grow and expand. There's nothing wrong with a smaller layout. You don't need a gigantic layout to enjoy the hobby to its fullest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've actually had a couple of guys come over. They saw my layout online and contacted me either through YouTube or through my website, and they were very much interested in to see, how much operation I could get in such a, small room. And after they came over, it motivated them to build their own small layout similar to what I have. Everybody thinks you got to have a huge area to have a nice layout. That's not necessarily the case. I call my layout right sized because it's not necessarily small. It's not, but it's right sized for me. It fits the things that I wanted to do, which was operations the slow speed switching and stuff, and then detailing things, which scenery, finish, detailing. Those are the things that I like. So it worked out perfect for me.
And then you replicated the locomotives from the Chicago Northeastern. Or Chicago, Georgia Northeastern.
Georgia
Chicago.
Northeastern. Yes. Yeah. Well, I had, like I said, I had some inside information, if you will. I was able to talk to the crews and stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things I got to do was actually ride with the prototype crew as they went down and switched the marble industry in Marble Hill. And I was able to take photos and stuff because I was an employee. The Blue Ridge Scenic Railway was a subsidiary of the Georgia Northeastern, which at the time was run by a family. So since I was theoretically already an employee, they didn't have any, I didn't have to sign any releases or whatever because I was already on the payroll, if you will. I was just working in a different division. So they arranged for me to go down and ride out of the yard there in Tate, which you'll see some photos on my website of the small engine house there in Tate. And that's what I replicated on my layout. And then from there we went down, and it's really interesting because Marble Hill is a few hundred feet below Tate, and the way they get there is they have to go down a switchback, and the switchback is about 4.5% grade, and the tail of the switchback accommodates a locomotive and maybe 3 cars depending on the length of the cars. So it's a really interesting operation. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to include the switchback on my layout. If I had more space, I would have done that, but it's old time railroading. I mean, it's, customer service and, one-on-one kind of, railroading. The day that I rode, we went down the switchback, dropped off a couple of cars at one of the marble industries, went down to another marble industry and dropped off a car. They came back up the switchback. They had been back about an hour. They got a phone call from the industry saying, "Oh, we got a car that needs to be picked up." Well, they were just there. But they said, "Okay, we'll be right back." And they took the engine back down, ran it down the switchback again, went and picked up that one car and brought it up to the yard because it was ready. Well, it was ready probably when we were there, but they just hadn't made the phone call yet.
Oh.
But that's kind of the neat operation that you get with short lines and stuff is, customer service and talking to the crews, and they talk to the customers, and it's, they pick up the phone and they call the guy that they've talked to for, so many years, and it all works out. I mean, it's, like I said, it was really a neat operation. Since then, the railroad has been sold to Patriot Rail, which is a company that owns several short lines. And they're still running it, but there's been some changes, as you can probably figure. When a larger corporation takes over, then some of that stuff that they used to do, they don't do anymore.
And you stopped working on the railroad just because?
There was a change at Blue Ridge Scenic, and management changed, and they took away the job of trainman, and unfortunately, it wasn't fun anymore. How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand that. And you were already retired, so you were only doing
That's
it mostly.
correct.
You were doing it for fun, not for really anything else.
Correct.
Now, how old were you? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to ask on the layouts. Did you build them both simultaneously, or maybe I missed that? Did you build the CSX before the Georgia Northeastern?
Yeah, the CSX was started in about 2000, and I had it there at my house until I moved in about 2011. I moved, so it was up for about 10 years. So I tore that one down. Gave some of the sections were part of a modular. I was part of a modular club, Echoes Model Railroad Club there in Miami, South Florida, if you will. And I donated the modules to the club and donated some other sections to other people that could use them, and just basically disassembled the layout. I took the locomotives, rolling stock, and the DCC system, but other than that, I really didn't save anything. The only other thing I did save was the buildings. And I just used those as temporary placeholders while I was building this layout. And then I scratch built or kit bashed all the structures that you see on the current layout. But I was able to use the old buildings just to kind of have something there. There was an article that was in Model Railroad Planning. And if you look at that one, it was a few years ago, you'll see some of the pictures, and the structures that were there are not on my layout anymore. It was just something that was just there to kind of hold the spot until I could get around to actually building the structure.
Okay, so the CSX Hawks Ridge on your layout, that was in Miami.
Correct.
And
that one's gone.
And that one was also featured in Model Railroader.
Actually, it was in a special issue, which was more layout and less space, which was done by Andy Sperandio. And I had some interesting things which they thought was cool, was those, using the modules as part of the layout and how it was all removable. And I had a center peninsula that I would remove and hang on the wall, and a lot of things to try to make the best use of the space that I had, but yet still be able to use it as a garage and all the other things that you gotta keep in the house, because the house was not that big, so we had to have some stuff in the garage.
And so this is the layout plan is from Model Railroader. Now, is that a Lincoln that's in the garage there?
No, that was a Mustang.
Oh, a Mustang.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah. Actually, that car my son still has. My youngest son still has. I have 3 kids, so my youngest son still has that car.
Oh, cool. What year? What year Mustang?
Wow, now you're asking tough questions. All
right, roughly.
It was probably 2005.
What color was it?
A smoky gray.
Okay. All right. So that was an easy question, the smoky gray question.
Yeah.
Completely off topic, except that you mentioned Mustangs. When Ford released the redo of the Mustang and Chevrolet released the redo of the Camaro, they completely screwed up the Camaro, and they did a really good job with the Mustang.
Yep.
Yeah,
well, I'm a big fan of the Mustangs. We have one, currently have one now. It's a convertible Mustang. So that's the wife's car, so she enjoys driving it, and she lets me drive it every once in a while, which is a good thing.
Is it a Shelby, blue and white?
No.
What do those Shelbys go for? They go for like 120 a copy or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So what was it like being a fireman in Miami? So how old were you when you became a fireman?
I was very young. I was 20.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So what year would that have been?
82.
Okay.
So I got on in 82 and worked my way up through the department. I was a firefighter, and then cook and KP and all that other stuff. Became a driver, and then a few years later after that, became a lieutenant, and then went to our training division. Worked in the training division for a while. Became a what they call the driver engineer instructor. I used to train the other firefighters how to drive and operate the fire trucks.
Right.
So I did that, and then got promoted to captain. Became a captain at a fire station, which was only about 2 blocks away from the Orange Bowl. If you remember the old Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
We'd have 75,000 screaming fans 2 blocks away from our fire station, and we'd spend a lot of time over there because of all the things that would go on. So it was interesting. The good part was you never knew what you were going to get. Every day was different, and I loved being a firefighter. I mean, it was a great career, and I'm still a volunteer fireman up here in the county where I live. So I'm still volunteering and doing what I can to help out the guys and girls here in our local area.
Sure. And how long were you in the Miami Fire Department?
A little bit over 28 years.
Okay, and 28. How do you manage to retire at 28? Like not 30, not 25. How do you retire at 28?
Well, you have to put in basically a minimum of 25 years. So I stayed a few years after that. I mean, some people could leave a little bit earlier. It all depends on when you think you're ready to go.
Okay, yeah, okay. So the minimum was 25, and you stayed longer.
Mm-hmm.
And man, getting in at 20, that's not still the norm, is it? You can get in at that young of an age?
A few people do. I mean, it's harder now because most of the departments now want you to be a paramedic to get on. So you've got to spend a couple of years going to school to become a paramedic. So you figure if you get out of high school and you go right into the paramedic training and that, you might be able to get on at 20, 21, 22 years old still.
All right. So I can't let you go without, we can't leave this part of the thing without talking about driving a fire truck. Now that must be pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I enjoyed driving even in Miami, as crazy as it was. You learn to expect the unexpected. How's that? Yeah. They do all kinds of crazy things down there. Pull to the right is not in their mindset. It's stop, turn left, pull out in front of you, run the lights, get right in behind you because you're doing a good job of breaking through traffic. So they'll be tailgating you through the red lights and everything else. I mean,
Oh my
all
God.
kinds of crazy stuff happen. I mean, we've had people steal fire trucks. We've had all kinds of just you name it. Even if you can't think of it, it's probably happened. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, I've been on calls that I would never have figured that this would have been a call, but that's like I said, you just never know what you're going to get.
So go ahead, Tony?
I would imagine you probably, what you said, you worked almost 30 years. I mean, Miami has grown and changed so much. I mean, the Miami you knew when you started firefighting had to be a lot different from what it was by the time you retired, wasn't it?
Yes. They were tearing down 2-story apartment buildings and putting up 30-story high-rise apartment buildings.
Wow.
And, the density was just, off the charts. I mean, we'd have, over a million people. The city of Miami is actually a small part of Miami-Dade County. City of Miami is pretty much the downtown areas and Little Havana, Coconut Grove, and some other areas a little bit further north and west, but it's 33 square miles. Well, in the daytime, you'd have over 1 million people there, and at night, you'd have probably over 500,000. Well, those numbers have gone probably off the chart since I left. Its density is just unbelievable, and with that comes traffic and all the other stuff that goes along with it.
It's crazy. So how did you manage to get both layouts? And okay, so the one layout, the CSX one, was in a publication that Andy Sparandio did. What was it called again?
More layout and less space, which was a model railroader special edition. Those were they've done different special editions. So that was that one. And then my latest layout was in Model Railroad Planning by Tony Custer.
Okay. And so how did they find you?
Well, the interesting part is I kind of got turned to them by Lance Minheim. Lance and I, because I was online looking at locomotive pictures for my layout, and I was punched in like CSX locomotive, and Lance Minheim's photo came up of one of his locomotives on his layout at the time. And I was impressed with how realistic his layout looked and everything. So I contacted him and we became friends. And this is just through the internet and through his website. And he's got as you know, he's a professional layout builder. So he's, got a business website. And through that, we became good friends. And it happened to be just at that time, he was looking to build the Miami downtown spur. And the downtown spur was less than a mile from where I worked. So if he needed pictures or whatever, I would go by and take pictures of what was happening, and I'd kind of do a report. And through him, I became interested in the downtown spur. Again, it was something that was right in my own backyard, and really didn't know anything about it until I started doing some research for Lance on the spur. And he would need pictures of certain parts of the buildings or the back of a building. Well, nobody goes and takes a picture of the back of the building. So he would say, this is what I needed. And I would go and take the pictures and, through the internet, email them to him. And he used some of those photos to make his wallpaper buildings, which if you've been to Lance's website, you see that he takes photos and wraps it around the structure. And it looks very realistic, of course, because it's exactly what the building looked like.
Yeah.
So again, through that, we became friends. And then he came down to Miami to do some field research. And I picked him up at the airport, and we went and rail fan the downtown spur, and I was kind of his security detail because a couple of the areas there where the spur is probably not the best areas to be there by yourself.
Right.
So I knew the area, knew the certain areas you don't want to go in, certain areas it's okay, and so we went and did that, and then he basically was friends with Andy Sparandio. And he had seen my layout, so he told Andy about me, and Andy contacted me and asked if I wanted to do an article. So Lance is the one that started me off on doing articles and writing for the publications and stuff.
Right. And what year was? So you've been reading Model Railroader all along, I guess, eh?
Oh yeah, I've been a big fan of Model Railroader for many years, and long time subscriber and everything else. Probably before I had my layouts, I was dreaming of the day that I would be able to build one and reading Model Railroader.
Yeah. Did you ever have any favorite authors?
Well, let me see. There was this one guy. His name was Lionel String, and
Oh,
he had
ding,
some
ding,
weird
ding, ding,
column.
ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding,
he
ding,
had some
ding.
weird
There we
column.
go.
He would talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, and I never understood any of it, but
There you go.
that's all right.
So what year
All right.
was what year was it you met Lance?
Oh, geez, sometime after 2000, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly.
Okay, you should have been making notes maybe for when you were going to be on the podcast.
I should have.
Now, wait a minute. How can you give him trouble there? I mean, he walked right into what I thought was this fishing trap of yours. Of did you have a favorite author? I thought, oh my god, and boom! I mean, he just bam right
true.
on target. Come
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
the guy a break.
That was a direct hit. That was very good. That was
Very good. I mean, I think he gets the home version of the
Yeah.
podcast game.
Yeah, you get the home game.
and a year's supply of turtle wax.
I just want the couch. I fell in love with the couch here. I think can I take it home with me?
No, I don't think health code.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we
that's probably true. That probably will not go with our decor here. The wife would probably not.
Yeah. You have to kind of like chisel it out of there. It seemed to be stuck now to the floor. And somebody McGurked on it years ago, and we don't know what it is.
Wow.
What? You were here when it happened. Marty McGurk. I love Marty McGurk. He is like the best. He's like, have you ever met Marty McGurk? Because he's not far from Lance.
No, I don't believe I have.
Well, he was at Model Railroader when I was there. There's a guy you'd want to get to know about Model Railroad, and we should talk to him again because he started on his new layout. So roughly around the year 2000, you were searching out on the internet and you stumbled onto a picture of Lance's, and then you guys became friends just from that.
That's correct. Yeah, it worked out. I mean, like I said, it worked out that he was looking for research for the Miami Spur, and I told him, well, whatever you need, I'm here. I mean, I can go take pictures or, do some research. So I started watching for the local more than I had in the past.
Right.
And started, getting information for them about, when they drop off cars, what industries were taking cars and stuff, because the downtown Spur is kind of unique in that it's almost like a short line, kind of like what I'm doing here. And there would be businesses that you wouldn't see a car there for months, and all of a sudden they'd get 2 or 3 cars, and you go, well, I didn't think they were taking cars anymore. Well, yes, they are. And then just because there was a name on the building didn't necessarily mean that's what the building was doing. Because sometimes they would change ownership, wouldn't bother changing the sign, and all of a sudden now they'd start getting rail service. So it was kind of an interesting, learning experience, if you will, to find out what was actually happening on the downtown Spur.
Yeah, and I guess the reason I'm asking that is because I'm very excited about what the internet's doing for the hobby, and especially in the last 5 years with social media becoming in the forefront. So. You've been in the hobby, so say from mid 80s, late 80s is when you started kind of getting back into it, and which was kind of just at the dawn of the internet, and you must have noticed a change or how the hobby has changed, or the difference between when you were a kid and what it is today. I mean, it's
right.
kind of a cool story to stumble onto Lance and then you guys become friends.
Oh yeah. And again, I've met other people through my website and through my YouTube videos where they've contacted me, and then we end up becoming friends. One of them, as an example, was Tim Garland, who was on the Proto Throttle webcast with me. And Tim and I have become friends because he saw one of my YouTube videos, recognized that it was a Georgia layout. So he's like, not too many people know about the Georgia Northeastern, and he was one of them that knew about it. So he contacted me. He's like, do you live in Georgia or what? And so we started talking and found out he was a locomotive engineer for Norfolk Southern. So I was like, wow, that's great. There's some excellent prototype information there. I just, sometimes that's kind of hard to find the information, that the real railroaders don't normally just kind of pass that along. It's a little harder to find that information. So he came over, we started operating, did an operating session. I've been over to his place and operated on his layout. And then with the Proto Throttle, we kind of really got tied in together with it. And he started doing some we'll call it alpha testing with the proto throttle. And then as soon as I found out he was getting that, I had to get involved with it, because that was a really neat thing that's come to the hobby, is the proto throttle. I'm enthralled with how much fun it's made my operating sessions. And again, another thing with the proto throttle, for a small layout, it extends the operating session because you have to operate a little bit slower. So for my layout, it's perfect. It added an extra 10 minutes to a normal 1 hour switch job, just because you have to operate slower.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
I don't think Scott has any idea what's happened there. I think Mike might know. Michael Peterson might know from Iowa Scaled Engineering. I'm going to interview Michael Peterson, and it's got to be interesting, because what they've stumbled onto there, like, everybody that touches it thinks it's cool, pretty much.
Oh yeah, especially if you're into operations, and like I said, it was a perfect fit for me, because that's my thing. If you watch my videos, I operate very slowly. I try to operate as realistically as possible. I've got a lot of comments from professional railroaders who like my videos, because I don't, slam the cars around. The switching is more realistic. I kind of, take the time, but I try not to go too far, to the other extreme where it becomes boring. But I do try to just slow down and think about what a prototype crew would be doing if they were operating, and how they would be switching. And again, I've incorporated some of those things into my layout, because I have operating derails, I have operating fence gates that go to the industries, and I've also even got a couple of operating overhead rolling doors, where I did an article on it in Model Railroader, where it's disguised as a rooftop ventilator, and you turn that and it cranks the door open, which is exactly what the prototype does. I have a friend that's a conductor on the Georgia Northeastern, and he says, yeah, I have to go in and open up the door and go into the facility and make sure the cars are clear and all that other stuff. So he says, yeah, I actually am the one that opens the door. So
Okay.
I said, well, that's something I could include on my layout. Again, it just slows it down a little bit, because the cars are inside the structure, so you got to slow down, stop outside, go in, open up the door. Then you can go in, make your hookups, and drop them off. And then when you're done, you can close the door back or leave the door open, whichever you want.
Yes.
I didn't realize that was yours, Tom. That is real. I saw that and thought, what an ingenious, because there's almost something even kind of Lionel toy train about it. But the way you did it, it looks so good and so prototype. But an operating door does almost seem toyish, yet for a real prototype operating session, yeah, the fencing and the door like that adds so much of, well, that's how it really is. That's what you'd have to do. So
Exactly.
yeah, that was a tremendous thing. I didn't realize that was yours. I remember seeing that. That was excellent.
Yeah, and I'm very much into the low tech, because people say, well, why don't you mechanize it or motorize it or do? I said, no, I'm all my layout is all very very basic, very manual, tried and true, standard stuff. The switches are microengineering switches, and they're thrown by using your finger to move the points one way or the other, because you've got the little spring in there that comes from microengineering. I don't have any switch machines or anything like that. And then the gates are all done with Lego mechanisms and stuff. My wife thought I was crazy, because I was rummaging through this huge box of Legos that we had from when the kids were younger. And of course, we kept it for the grandkids.
Right.
And so I start rummaging through the box looking for, I got an idea. And she's like, you're crazy. And then I figured out all this stuff and found a component that would work. And it's all done with just gears and real simple stuff. So the back of the door, basically, I glue a rack, and then the gear mechanism is what they call a gear reducer. So you just turn the knob, and it spins the big wheel, which engages the teeth on the back of the door, and that's what makes it go up and down. So I didn't have to do any, electric stop switches, limit switches, all that other stuff, and it's just very, very simple. And if something happens, it's easy to fix.
Have you written an article about that anywhere, or is there any place where people can see what you just described?
Yeah, there's some videos on my website. If you go on to the how-to section, you can see that, and there's some articles in Model Railroader. I can find those for you.
I'm trying to think. They were in, was it the early part of 2018 or 2017?
Yeah.
It's been in the last year and a half. I remember seeing that because it really caught my eye. It's like, oh, that's a neat idea.
So how many articles have you had published, do you think? Uh-oh. Somebody left.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh.
I was looking for something here. Hold on.
Oh, you can't be walking around the studio.
I've got you didn't tie me to the couch. I mean, I'll have to be able to move around.
Look at this guy. He's just getting up, wandering.
Well, I wondered why he had that wheelbarrow full of old back issues of Model Railroader when he came in. I thought, well, he's not going to be in the green room that long to read all that.
Yeah,
that's right.
Getting ready to go.
Well, if you want to know about the overhead door, that was in May of 2018, in the May 2018 issue of Model Railroader. That tells you how I made the overhead door.
That's pretty cool. So, all right. And, of course, people can get all that online now if they want.
That's true.
And
you were also talking about the lumber yard. That was in March of 2018, which also describes how I built the operating fence gates. And again, there's a video on my website. If you go there, I show you the behind the scenes, how it operates and all that other good stuff. So again, go back to the website and you can check it out there. Go to the video section or the how-to section, and you'll find some videos on that.
Yeah, well, and I think the important thing is that on the website you can get right to the YouTube channel because you've got links for the website for the YouTube.
That's correct. Correct.
So you can get right to it. You don't have to go searching. You don't have to go to YouTube and type in your name or anything. You can just click on the link and away you go.
Exactly. Yeah, and my oldest son is very tech savvy, and he's the one that helped me set up the website. So I give him a lot of credit for making it as user friendly as it is, and he did a fantastic job. So he's got it where even somebody like myself can actually update it and do things that If I had to design it, I'd still be working on the homepage. So, but he did a fantastic job for me. So. A little bit of payback for all those years of college that he went, and I spent money on that and other things.
I bet his first name is Ryan.
Yes, it is.
It's right there on the website. And you can check him out at rmkapps.com.
That's correct. Yeah, he's got a few apps that he's designed for the iPhone, and he's got some neat stuff. So go check out his page there at rmkapps. And he's got one that's kind of neat. It's a heads-up display, so it displays the speed that you're going on the windshield of your car by using your phone, putting your phone up on the dash, and then it reflects on the windshield. It's reversed, of course, so that when you see it, it's correct. And it's again pretty neat app. And he's got a couple other ones that he's working on.
Yeah, and it's important to know your speed, right, Tony? Tony.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. You always have to observe the speed limit. Yes,
exactly. You always
observe. The key word being observe.
The key is to always observe the speed limit.
So that heads up app works on your phone, reflects onto the inside of the windshield?
That's correct. Yeah, you put the phone on the dashboard and then it reflects off of the windshield. It works better at night, but
right.
Again, he's got a video on that and everything else. But the nice part is you don't have to look down. You can just keep your eyes on the road, and it'll tell you what speed you're going. So when the officer pulls you over, you can say, "Yes, sir, I did know how fast I was going."
I remember, was it maybe 1980s Camaros? Somebody did that for a while, a heads-up display way back.
That's correct. Yeah, some of the high-end cars still do have a heads-up display. So nothing that I would be driving, but there are some high-end cars out there that do heads-up display.
It's a neat idea. I'm surprised it didn't kind of stay around or do more or something, because it seems so obvious. Then you don't look down.
Yeah, it kind of disappeared, didn't it?
I think in general, yeah. I mean, my new Lincoln, I don't think any of the Lincolns offer that, and you'd think that would be, but I don't know. Yeah.
Best Lincoln ever made.
What is the best Lincoln ever made?
What's your favorite? Basically, it's a lead-in, just like I was leading him to.
Well, I know you like that early 70s Mark II or III that's in the French Connection.
Yeah,
but if I had anything, it'd be that 79 yacht of a Lincoln, that big Mark V, that basically is so big you're probably going to have to pay personal property tax in 2 different counties. But yeah,
and of course we can't forget the 95 Cadillac Eldorado.
What a beautiful car. You know, I took it out for dinner the other night, and I thought of you because, you know, I don't drive it that much. You were only like two times back that it's gone anywhere.
Exactly.
So,
Well, it's basically my car.
you know, I was thinking I need to get, because the license plate bracket in the back says Tony's Eldorado. And I thought, you know, I really need to get another one of those that says, you know, Lionel's Eldorado.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that.
Okay. Whatever happened to that guy we were talking to about his layout? Oh, yeah, Thomas, yeah.
What was your first car, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. A 72 Toyota Carina.
Carina.
Very yellow. It
Ooh.
cost me all of $500.
Classic.
Carina.
Toyota Carina? I'm going to have to look that up. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it was aspiring to be a Corolla, but it didn't quite make it. So yeah, it was something way back when. But yeah, it was basic transportation. It beat what I was doing at the time, which was walking.
Yeah.
Very neat. Very neat.
What was the first when you started at the fire department? What was the first call you ever went out on?
Wow, I don't even remember.
Ah.
Probably a nothing call. I don't even remember the good calls anymore. You know.
All right, what's the most exciting thing? You can't be a fire captain in Miami when we're interviewing you, even though it's a model railroad show. You cannot be a fire captain in Miami without regaling us with one exciting story of being a fireman or a fire captain or a truck driver or whatever.
Oh, well, there was a couple of good calls. We had one where a cement truck was on the expressway, and I think one of the axles broke, and the guy flipped over on its side, and it slid through the guardrail, a concrete guardrail, and was overhanging the side of the expressway, which was probably about 120 feet up in the air.
Whoa.
And the cab was hanging over, but the rest of the truck was still on the expressway, and the driver was in the cab. And when we climbed up on the truck to stabilize it and everything else, it was still loaded with concrete. The concrete beam had come through the top of the cab and creased the ceiling and missed the guy's head by a couple of inches. And when we climbed in through the passenger door, we looked out through the driver's side window, and it was 120 feet down to the asphalt on the other side. So we had to extricate him out from the vehicle without us falling through.
Wow.
And so that was a little bit exciting.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, that's a good story.
Wow. Yeah, that is good. Yeah.
And we've had a couple other fires. One fire back when I was a young firefighter. We had an apartment building fire, and we had actually just been by maybe 15, 20 minutes, on our way back from another call, and there was no smoke, no fire or whatever. Well, we get called out, and it was a couple of blocks from the station, and we come rolling up there, and there's people hanging out of the windows and smoke rolling out, and there was 2 windows where people were on the second floor that needed to be removed. So I took a ladder, put it up to a window, and there was an elderly lady in that window. Went up the ladder, grabbed her, spun her around onto the ladder, started carrying her down. By the time I got to the bottom of the ladder, I looked back up, and where she was now fully involved with flames. So flames were coming out of the window. So another 30 seconds, and it would have been a different story. But we saved her. My partner on the other window went down, and he got to remove another lady, but this one was about 300 pounds.
Wow.
And she came out onto the ladder, and he did his best to guide her down in a controlled manner. And I was thankful that I got the one that was a little smaller. But yeah, that was an interesting fire, and again, fortunately, and a little bit later, we ended up finding another victim and saved him also in the same apartment.
Wow.
Up on the second floor of this apartment building. So we had three saves on one call, which made for a really good day. Unfortunately, the building was totaled, but we didn't lose any lives. So that was a very good day for the people that were trapped.
Yeah, that's for sure. our very first superfan number one. It was a firefighter in Connecticut for 30 plus years, I believe, 35 or something like that. But he's a really old guy. He's like my age, and the years haven't been kind to him. His name is Bruce Kelly. I'm kidding, Bruce. We love you, Bruce.
Wow, I was going to say, I'm making notes of this, that I'm going to have to mention this to Bruce.
Well, I hope he hears it.
Well, I'm sure he will, but
yeah,
just in case.
So how many? So you've been in. So we still got stuck on how many articles do you think you've had published?
Oh, I don't know. I don't keep track of them. That's why when you ask, I had to go look. I had to bring my briefcase out here and spread it out and figure out what I did when. But no, actually, like I said, Lance was the one that encouraged me to start writing the articles, and I enjoy writing and photography and that kind of stuff. I don't know that I'm that great of a writer, but at least I'm able to put my thoughts down, and then the editors at Model Railroader make me sound a lot better than what I probably am.
Sure, and the photography's all yours.
The photography is all mine. I'm a one man show, so that's why I do the videos. I do photography. I do everything, and I guess that's one of the reasons why they accept my articles at Model Railroaders, because they're done. They don't have to do anything. Everything is pretty much packaged and ready to go. So they do some editing. They put it in their format and do their layout and all that other stuff. So. Like I said, I used to do some writing and some photography, and those are secondary hobbies of mine. So it kind of, turned into what I do here for Model Railroader, and then the videos, the same thing. I enjoy doing videos. My youngest son is into film and videos, and learned a lot with him taking classes and stuff. So I've applied some of that information to my videos, and I try to make them entertaining to watch. We could do a whole show on what you want to have in your YouTube videos and what you don't want to have in your YouTube videos, but I try to keep them short. I try to edit them so that they're interesting to watch, and I don't stay on one shot too long, and try to tell a story so that it's you're watching the local go along and work rather than just watching trains run around a layout with no reason, at least that you see from the video.
And how long have you been doing the videos? In earnest, like how long have you been working away on those?
Well, the videos that you see, if you look at my website, I have a couple of videos of the old layout there.
Right.
Those were done by my youngest son. So I started doing the videos once I started working on this layout and got the digital video camera and started learning how to do editing, and I'm all self-taught and just kind of what looks good, and learned. You'll see the videos get a little better, hopefully, as time goes on. The first videos I did, I learned from those, and then people made some comments, and I didn't take them as insults. I took them as constructive criticism, and I learned from those and made some changes, and kind of changed the way I did a few things and a few cuts and different things like that. So I'm getting better at it, and like I said, that's kind of where I came in with the proto throttle. Was I would help the guys out by putting out a video on how to operate the proto throttle, and that was a few days worth of filming and editing and all that other stuff. And I tried to again make it entertaining to watch, and I always want you to watch my video and go, wow, that was over already. I just was getting into it rather than this thing is boring, click and you go on to something else.
Yeah. So what's for people aspiring videographers or YouTubers? What's a couple of important tips that you would say?
Well, in real estate, there's location. In videos, it's tripod.
Okay.
Shoot on a tripod. Don't handheld. It's it makes the videos a lot better if you can shoot it on a tripod and then edit. That would be the next thing, because again, if you go onto YouTube and watch some videos, and not picking on anybody in particular, but some of them, they're moving the camera around between shots, and that's still on the video. I mean, I don't want to see them repositioning the camera. I don't want to see moving in and out and trying to focus and doing all that other stuff. It should be a little bit more finished or a little more polished than that. So. That's what I try to do with my videos. Is I'll take them and I'll put all the footage together, And then from that, I just start cutting, and get it down so that, just you're looking at the meat. You're not looking at all the fat and all the other junk that, nobody really cares about.
Yeah, that's important in videos, is to how to cut out the fat and just the important parts. And okay, so we don't know how many magazine articles you've done. You refuse to tell us that. How many videos have you done?
You'd have to look on the YouTube channel. I don't keep track of them.
Yeah, I already did 25.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that many. If you'd asked me to guess, I probably would have been way off. You should have asked me to guess.
All right. Let's see if we can find an easier question for you. What was the last article you had published?
Ooh, well, that's kind of an interesting.
All right, time out here. Are you actually Thomas Klimoski, or are you just somebody else that's pretending to be him?
I am him.
Okay.
But no, the last article that was published was actually a Trains of Thought column by Tony Custer, where he had talked to me about some things. And again, if you talk to Tony Custer, be careful, because some of that stuff may end up in the magazine. So right. part of my conversation ended up as one of his Trains of Thought columns, and he asked me to take a picture, so I sent him a picture. So that was technically, I guess, the last article that was in the. Although Tony wrote it, right. I did have a photo credit in there, and a lot of what he wrote was quoted from me. So I guess that was the last article, and there's a few more that are, as they say, in the queue, which they may come out with them next month or next year. It's whenever they want to get around to publishing it.
All right. And so you don't know how many you've written. The last one somebody else wrote. This seems all very peculiar to me.
Well, how many? Let me ask you, how many did you write?
A lot. I was about 300 pages of text, I think, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not a lot. About 300 pages. I don't know that's you wouldn't have accepted that answer.
But that's the beauty of having the podcast. I don't have to have the answers. I just have to ask. I just get to ask the questions. You see, I learned that in high school.
I see how it is.
Yeah, it's all like it's like I said about high school. Don't pay attention. Don't take notes, and then you don't have to worry about the test. Because you don't know anything. So I realized the teacher was the only one asking the questions. So I thought, I got to do something where I'm only asking the questions. I don't got to have any of the answers.
That's right.
Okay, I see on your website. Let me try this one. I see on your website you have an MRH link to MRH. Have you had stuff published in MRH?
Yes, I did. I had a article on weathering a gondola way back when. And again, I know you're probably going to ask me, when did that one appear? The easiest thing is go on and use their handy search item, which if you put in my name, it'll show the article that came out. Okay. It was back in 2012 or thereabouts.
And did you write that one?
Weathering a scrap metal service gondola.
Okay. And did you write that, or did Joe Fugate write it?
No, I wrote that one.
Oh, okay.
And actually, if you take the time to go find that one, you actually see a better picture of me. So then you can see what I look like when I worked as a trainman on the Blue Ridge Scenic.
Okay, cool.
There was actually a little better picture in that one because they wanted to see what I look like.
So how did you get hooked up with Proto Throttle? Because that's kind of an interesting story. Because they were like, how did that all occur? That you were basically one of the testers of the throttle in the early days, weren't you?
That's correct. Yes. Real early into it, I was following their post on the MRH website and was really encouraged by what they were trying. And again, talking through Tim and stuff, who had reached out to him to offer to be, a tester. So I contacted them and spoke to Scott and basically started working with him and offered to do the videos for him. Again, because, they were developing the throttle. They weren't necessarily, looking at doing video and stuff. Right. They had seen my website. They had seen the YouTube videos that I had done. And so they said, well, you've got a group of people that are following you on YouTube. So if you post a video on your channel, we'll automatically get, some views from that. And then through their website, they linked it my website hosts the video. So when you go to the Proto Throttle website, you click on the video, it actually comes over to my website or to my YouTube channel. And then I was answering all the comments that I would get on the video from, questions about the Proto Throttle. So I was basically be kind of a salesman, if you will, for them, and helping to answer questions and again put that out there for them. And in return, they let me be one of the beta testers because I was one of the few people that they knew that had a Digitrax system. And if you know the history with the Proto Throttle, the Digitrax was not as cooperative as the NCE folks. So they had to do a workaround and some other things to get it to work. So I worked with Michael and Nathan and Scott, and they sent it to me, and I loaded the program and started testing it and seeing if I had any other issues or problems. And if I did, then I worked with the other guys and basically worked out any little bugs or anything like that. But pretty much by the time I got the Proto Throttle, it was pretty well done and ready to go. It was just shortly before being released to the public. So again, little things that I found or little comments and stuff. Also went through the manuals with them and made some recommended some changes to make it a little more user friendly because the guys that wrote it are great technical guys. And they think everybody understands what they understand, and I'm definitely not in that category. So I figured, well, if I can understand it and put it in language that I can understand, then hopefully other people that are not as technically savvy as they are would be able to also understand it. So again, you don't want to give it to an engineer to read. You want to give it to the guy that's doing the final assembly, and that's kind of what I was. If I can take it out of the box and make it run on my layout, then other people should be able to do the same thing.
Actually, the instructions for the Proto Throttle, I was actually very pleased with how well they were written. So I can thank you for that, can I?
Yeah. Well, like I said, most of that stuff was done. I just handled a few little clarifications or things like that to hopefully make it a little more user friendly, if you will. But Scott did most of that. He's 99.9%. The few little things that I suggested or whatever were very minor. He had done all the work before that.
You don't have to say that. I think we pretty much all know that Scott was dead weight, isn't he?
Well, Scott was the one beating the drum. He was doing a good job and underestimating, overselling and underestimating or whatever, right?
And he's a very nice guy. He's a very, very nice guy. I've had many great conversations with him.
He is an excellent guy. And again, I got kind of tied in with those guys over there, friends with Joe Atkinson and some of these other people that we were friends before the Proto Throttle came out. So this was just something that kind of brought us together also as time went along.
So, okay. So you knew you met Tim Carlin before you got involved with the Proto Throttle and all that.
Correct. And also Joe Atkinson, who was another one that was on the podcast with us.
Yes, exactly. How did you think that went?
I thought it went well.
Okay. That's good. No, you said something, and I'm going to hold you to this because I think you said something that you can't just blow this one off and say, I don't remember or I don't know. So you were saying that you had Digitrax, but Digitrax wasn't working with them very well, or you mean it just didn't work with Digitrax very well?
No, the issue was that Digitrax would not permit the Proto Throttle group to tie into their system versus the NCE allowed them to, get the codes and everything that they needed so they could make a direct connection.
Right.
With Digitrax, what they had to do is they had to work through a Wi-Fi. So the receiver for the Proto Throttle is a Wi-Fi, and then that goes to an LNWI, which is the LocoNet wire Wi-Fi, which now connects it up to the Digitrax system. So there's, we'll say, one more step that has to go through before the Proto Throttle can tie in to the actual system.
Oh, okay. And
so that's why there's two different receivers. If you notice on the Proto Throttle site, there's two different receivers. There's one for Lens and NCE, and then there's the other one, which is for Digitrax, JMRI, and there's another one I can't remember right now.
Okay. Tony, is Lens still popular at all?
Lens? Yeah, and DCC stuff. Yeah, no, it's still. I mean, there's everybody. I think so many of those now have been around long enough that they've all got folks that's what they use. So,
Right.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of them that, I tried to get in on the proto throttle testing thing and they refused to let me. That as Tom was doing the Digitrack thing, I said, I've got one of those little gold Tyco packs. And I said, I would like to hook it up with that and I said, I won't even do beta testing. I'll do VHS. I'll do better. And they wouldn't return my calls or emails.
Oh, my God.
I know. So don't even ask me about it. Oh, yeah.
And you know who is behind that, not returning your calls and emails?
Probably Scott Thornton.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It had to be him.
He's never going to sell us one of the. Thank goodness Shane, the young gun's already got his, because none of us will ever be able to buy any. Because
we were having a lovely dinner in Kansas City. We were minding our own business, us and 18 of our friends, and we were just sitting there minding our own business in our own private room, and all of a sudden the door bursts open, and who comes flying into the room but Scott Thornton? And we're like, how did you find us? And he had followed us to the restaurant. We had him escorted out by security.
That's not true. Everyone was very polite and said hello, and I could tell he was blown away by this group of serious rail enthusiasts all enjoying barbecue that night.
Yes.
Yeah. We should have invited him. I think he was with another group, wasn't he? I forget who he was with.
Yeah.
That evening. But yeah, he was there doing something,
Yeah, I think there was three. I think he was with two others. It was him. Yep. My what is it? Me, myself, and I. Scott is. You know what? Scott is one of those guys that you can just have fun with. That's just the thing, and I think that's why I'm so excited about this proto throttle thing, because it's like he just wants to. He's one of those guys that just wants to make the hobby better.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree.
Yeah.
Well, like I told you on the show, I was very impressed with it. I mean, it's not cheaply made, which is nice. I mean, it's got a metal faceplate. All the controls have a real solid feel to them and stuff. So, yes, it's it's a little bit expensive, but you can see where they put their money. I mean, it's in the controls and in the I'm amazed that they were able to get it to work with everything, with all the different systems, with all the different decoders, the configurations on this thing is amazing. And like I said, I think it's the latest, greatest thing. I put it up there with the DCC and sound. I mean, right after that, I mean, they come together so nicely when you have the proto throttle and then a locomotive with DCC and sound. I mean, it's a perfect marriage in my opinion.
Yeah. And when I finally got my hands on one, it took me maybe 5 minutes, and I was having a ball with. I love the realistic brake action.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just I can see on a layout your size where it would be perfect, and I can see on a layout of any size, like maybe if you're building a mushroom layout in a 20 by 36 building, you're going to have some standard throttles, but you could have a couple of those proto throttles in certain locations to, like you say, increase the time of switching and the enjoyment of switching. So how many of those throttles do you have?
I just have one because I pretty much run with just a 2-person crew. So I don't normally have 4 operators over. I can, and I have, but it's more the rare than it is the usual. So I prefer the smaller groups. And basically I've got a whole setup for operating sessions where, you come over and we sit down and we have a lunch before the operating session. That way you don't get hungry halfway through.
Right.
And I serve lunch, and then we come into the operating room, and we do the layout room and do the operating session. And again, it's just relaxed. There's no timetables. There's no other trains that come through. You take your time, you enjoy the operation, and that's pretty much it.
And there's, like you say, you have switch lists on your website to give people an idea, and you have a couple of videos on your Google or your YouTube channel that are about switching, and one of them seems to be pretty darn popular.
Yes, they've been real popular, and actually one of the videos has got Tim Garland in it, where we're working the switch crew, and I'm the engineer, and he's the conductor, and we're communicating as realistically as as you would if you were operating out on the prototype, and count down cars and doing all that other stuff, and again, that's got a lot of views. The switch lists were based on the prototype switch lists, which I was able to obtain through the Georgia Northeastern Railroad. So they're very close to what the actual crews are using. Of course, I had to modify them for my layout, but again, about as prototypical as you could get.
And you're very excited about YouTube. So what are some of your favorite YouTube channels?
I watch Ken Patterson. What's neat this week? I watch a lot of his stuff. Pretty much just anybody that puts out a model train video. I've got a few that I've subscribed to, but it just depends on who's posting at the time.
Right. And do you watch Ken Patterson's What's Neat This Week, where it does the weekly one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do.
Did you have a favorite of those?
Maybe the one where you were on there.
Yeah, number 44. That's all you got to ever remember.
Okay, I couldn't tell you the number, but yeah, I think there was one where you were the star of the show or something like that. I think.
I don't think I was the star. I was there. I was just there sucking up oxygen and taking up space. I don't think I was anywhere. Ken has a unique approach, and it's for some people just love it, and I can see why. What else should we ask him, Tony? There's way too much. I know what I was going to ask you. This is a good question for you. I got two good questions. These are my two standard questions that I will continue to ask until I can't take another breath. What is it about this hobby that you're very enthused about the hobby? What is it about the hobby that attracts people to it?
I guess for me, it's the creativeness and trying to recreate, we'll say, the prototype, if you will. I like all the aspects of the hobby. I mean, from scenery to track work to actually, if you can believe it, I don't mind ballasting. A lot of people hate ballasting. For me, it's just one of those things that you get out there and you just kind of, your mind goes off into another world, and you just start, you just kind of get into the groove, and it just, passes time. But then again, I have a layout that I don't have several hundred feet of main line. I've got, 40 feet of main line and then the sidings and stuff. So that's one of the other benefits to a small layout is whatever task you have, it usually doesn't take that long to get through it, and then you're on to something else. But again, I like the creative aspect of, envisioning something and trying to figure out, how to make it work, like, with the fences and the gates and the doors and all that other stuff, or, creating scenery or structures or, the geometry of the track and trying to get the most use out of the space that I have.
Right. And it's like, again, going back to the smaller layout, it's so much, it doesn't seem overwhelming, and you get to do the detail and everything to the nth degree. You could never get tired of doing the detail and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And my other question is that I ask everybody is, I'm convinced the hobby's gonna explode because of social media, and I think you've given some good examples. Do you think the hobby's growing, shrinking, staying the same? What's your take on that?
Well, I'll say it's growing, but it's also changing. And, unfortunately, back like when I got into the hobby, there was a couple of local hobby stores that were around, and I used to love to go to the hobby store and cruise the shelves and look at stuff and, figure out what I was going to buy and that kind of stuff. Well, unfortunately, most of the local hobby shops have closed up, and there was actually one here up here in the mountains of Georgia. And they've closed to the public now. Everything they're doing now is online sales, and they've kind of discontinued doing the trains. So unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I end up having to buy online because there's just no other option. There's some train shops down towards Atlanta. When I head down that way, I try to stop in and see those. But again, most of the time I end up purchasing stuff online. So yeah, I think it's changing and it's growing, but it's growing in the internet sales, eBay, YouTube, and online, we'll say, and it's just different. I don't know that necessarily it's a bad thing. It's great if you're looking for parts or things like that. I mean, you can go online, you punch it in, and sure enough, I've found, cars that I've been looking for. And, the old way was go to train shows and hope you found something. And you could go to a bunch of train shows and not find what you're looking for. Now you can go online and, pretty much find it at a hobby shop, or maybe, on eBay or whatever.
Right. And before you know it, the UPS truck shows up at your door.
That's correct.
A friend of ours used to drive UPS trucks from Anchorage to halfway to Fairbanks, Alaska every night. That was his job. He was actually a former F1 ace. I believe he won Monaco in 81.
81, yeah, I think it was 81, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
The neat thing, as he said about how you can find everything, whether it's eBay, online sellers, and that where it used to be so chance at swap meets, or if a hobby shop would have something, older. The other thing too, as you've said about like the social media, and as Tom said about the people he's met, is it's not just finding that rare piece of whatever HO you were looking for, but the people. I mean, again, growing up in a small town in Illinois, I always felt like, well, I'm the only model railroader, me and my dad, that I really know, other than when we go down to the hobby shop from time to time. And now it's, like this. Here we are talking train stuff, and you're in Canada, I'm in Missouri, Tom's in Georgia?
Northeast Georgia.
Yeah, northeast corner of Georgia. So, I mean, again, that link up, I think, is just as neat as all the stuff you find on eBay, is all the people, because all the resources and the information and just the enjoyment of, connecting with people that otherwise, how would you ever met them?
Absolutely.
It's really neat. Yeah.
Well, I've made, we'll say, lifelong friends from just meeting people on the internet through my YouTube videos or whatever. Some of them are prototype, railroaders, and again, lots of great information from them, and again, other friends that I've met through the internet. I never would have met unless I posted some videos on YouTube.
Yeah, and the thing of it is too, you can live in the Blue Ridge Mountains in the northeast corner of Georgia and not be cut off from the model railroad community.
Yep, and I did a lot of research. I live about an hour and a half away from where the Georgia Northeastern operates. So I couldn't get down there all the time to do, prototype research. So a lot of it was done through Google Earth and following stuff and looking at overhead aerial shots and all that other stuff. And a lot of great information you can find online through different websites and stuff. So again, you're able to do research and go to Railroad Picture Archives, and I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of pictures of Georgia Northeastern locomotives, from different years, and again, stuff that was on the line, was retired or wrecked or whatever, and there's a picture of it, and I would have never seen it unless I'd gone online and found it through different Railroad Picture sites.
Yeah, I know. It's just making the hobby explode. I'm convinced of that. I might be wrong. I could very well be, but I don't know. I just see how everybody is so connected now, and that was just like one of the biggest. I would have never met Tony. I never would have met, more than likely, never met you. It's like all of a sudden we get, nobody's too far away or too hard to get a hold of or any of that stuff.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I guess, Tony, we've pretty much... Do we have any other questions?
I think that's it, but you got to check out Tom's website, and it's Thomas Klimoski? Klimoski. Klimoski is the spelling on the last name. And if you've picked up Model Railroader or some of those in the last year or so, you've probably already seen a number of, as I say, I hadn't put together that opening door and the fence thing at the lumber yard. It's like, oh, that was his stuff too. I mean, really some great ideas. So and the whole thing is that one layout's in a 9x10 room, which is a real, wait a minute, really? I mean, when you think, oh, but I don't have the space, look at what this guy's done. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the great pictures he's taken. And you're doing a good job on your blog too. You're keeping it active. You're posting like once a month on your blog or once every 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. It's harder to post YouTube videos. There's a lot more involved with shooting and editing and everything for YouTube videos. So I don't, you're not going to see a lot of those. You'll see maybe 2 or 3 a year. And then I'm trying to keep the blog a little more current, where I post something, once a month or maybe a little bit more frequently than that.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty cool, buddy. Pretty cool. A retired fire captain from Miami moves to the northeast corner of Georgia and builds this really cool layout, and is friends with Lance Mindheim, and had hundreds and hundreds of articles published, but he doesn't know how many. More than 3 and less than 500.
Correct. That's a perfect number.
And how many videos have you put on YouTube?
Well, you told me 20, 25. I don't know.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
There
Like,
we
are you
go,
paying
yeah.
attention here or not? Like, there's going to be.
I was taking notes, and I ran out of ink in my pen.
I can see this guy, and he's driving the truck, and he'd written down half the address, and he's in the 500 block, and it's like, I don't remember which number it was. We'll just look for the smoke.
That's right.
All right. Tony, would you like to give out our email address?
If you would like to drop us an email with thoughts, comments, feedback, etc., you can do so by sending it to Modeller's Life. That's modelers with one L, so modelerslife@gmail.com.
And not 2 L's like
Lionel.
Cadillac.
Oh, or Cadillac, yes.
Or my favorite, the one I came up with. I don't know, maybe you weren't around when I came up with this. It's 1 L like El Dorado, not 2 L's like Cadillac.
Oh, no, that's slick. I like that. Yeah.
I fell in love with that one myself. I just came up with that myself. I didn't have the writers do it or nothing.
Not bad.
I know.
Not bad.
And we have a website, amodelerslife.com. If you go there, you'll find links to our Facebook page and our Patreon page, and all the more recent episodes, and all kinds of stuff is on the website. And I think that's just about it. I think we just about covered it. Now we have one last thing for you to do, Tom.
Okay.
At the appropriate moment, you have to say, "Happy Rails to you."
Okay.
Do you think you can do that?
I'll give it a shot.
All right. Do you want to write it down, or?
Oh,
Sure. Better write it down.
This guy's never going to invite you to his layout. Now, I probably might still be able to get in, but you're going to have to wait out in the car.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Tom, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy Rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.